the Muslim Ummah. And each day that goes by, the harder we try. In gratitude we pray to Allah. Chosen as part of the best of mankind, we spread the word of Islam. Each man at each hour, in awe of his power, each flower, each tree.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to our new program, Europe's Forgotten Heritage, Europe's Forgotten Islamic Heritage. I'm Dr. Stef Keris, Abu Yasser. Some of you might know me from my channel, Stef Keris 9, on YouTube basically, and I have done several lectures throughout Europe, as well as in Africa, as well as in America. And it is very interesting to see that in the lectures people always ask a lot of questions, and they would like to know more about Europe's Islamic heritage. Now, for that reason, I've written a book which focuses pretty much on Greece, my home country. I'm originally Greek, accepted Islam 20 years ago, and basically this is the book that I first wrote 2 years ago. This book focuses pretty much on the Ottoman heritage, which plays an important part in the Balkan, and of course in my home country, Greece. Greece used to be a part of the Ottoman Empire for 450 years. Not only Greece, of course, we have countries like Montenegro, Kosovo, Bosnia, in general, the whole of Yugoslavia, Albania. All these countries were once a part of the mighty Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire, which has shaken the majority of Christian Europe. Now, this book is focusing pretty much on the Greeks and on the Greek side. I will, in this program, inshallah, focus a bit on the entire Europe as a continent. Europe has been influenced by the Muslims in a very big way. The majority of the development, the Renaissance of Europe after the Middle Ages, all has to do, or a big part of Europe plays after the development of the Islamic science, and after the Muslims left Europe, the Europeans went on with this Islamic heritage. Unfortunately, many of them have forgotten or have left it aside, have brushed away this very important part. And during my time of research in the last couple of years, I've actually focused a lot on this type of heritage we have inherited as Europeans. We as Europeans, I think we should never forget that we owe the Muslims a lot. We owe Islamic civilization as much as we owe the Renaissance in Europe, as much as we know everything that came after that. I would like to focus on the following slides and the following photos that I'm going to show you now. And I'm very, very sure that most of the people have seen these slides before. I'm very sure that most of you recognize some of these photos. Now, if you take a look at them, and I'm not going to comment on these ones at all, because I would like you to take a deep look and just imagine that you are living somewhere else than where you're living at the moment. Imagine where this could be. And I'm very, very sure that many of you would say, wait a second, this is Morocco. No, this is Tunisia, Algeria, North Africa, Egypt. No, this is all Europe, and this is all part of Spain, which the Arabs or the Muslims used to call Al-Andalus. Nowadays, a part of the province of Andalusia in the south of Spain still carries the name Andalusia, but the Muslims used to call 2/3 of the country of Spain, as well as Portugal, Al-Andalus. And this is again a fact that people are not aware of. If we look into Spain's and Portugal's, this is all called the Iberian Peninsula, into the Iberian Peninsula's history, then we realize that it's impossible to leave this important part of history aside, because we're talking about 700 to 750 years of Islamic history, which is half of our history played in the Iberian Peninsula. Portugal was the first nation that basically became independent as a Christian nation, and was the first nation that, because of the invention of the compass, which again the Muslims invented in parts of Spain and Portugal. Because of that, they had the chance to go and discover, so-called discover for themselves and for Europe, America, Africa, and Asia. So imagine a world without the compass. Imagine a world without the discoveries that these Muslims have left behind, without the Islamic heritage that was left behind in Spain and Portugal. Nowadays, Spain, as well as Portugal, mostly Spain, but Portugal as well, are playing a little bit on Islamic tourism. They would like people to come and visit Spain, they would like people to come and visit Portugal, and take with them a bit of this history, a bit of this past. Now, unfortunately, there is also, let's call it, some negative view towards this part of history, of course. Many Spaniards, many Portuguese would not like to be reminded of this history, although in general terms, if we look at this history, it will actually tell you that it was positive in many ways. Of course, 750 years cannot just go by like this. That's logical, and I think everybody will understand that many negative things happened in these 750 years. That's logical. But most of the things that have happened, inventions, most of the research, most of scientific advantage that actually happened during that time was very important for Europe to come to the point, to come to the stage where it is nowadays. The pictures that I showed you just now were the pictures that were in the south of Spain. Now, the north of Spain does not have as many pictures, it does not have as many buildings and monuments to show, but still, Muslims went up to the north, went up to an area which basically is nowadays bordering the border of France, the frontier of France. That's where the first Christian kings established their own empire. This specific picture that you can see now, that was a picture actually of Lisbon, the capital of Portugal. And in Lisbon, this very center that I showed you just now is a very modern center. It is not a center which goes back to the time of the Muslims. But it has the typical Moorish architecture, as you can see yourself. And we're going to speak about this one into details, inshallah, in one of our episodes coming still. It is very important, I think, for us Muslims to look into our history. Of course, it is important for a people in general to recognize their history. But for Muslims nowadays, even more so. Because I have the feeling, and I've been teaching at schools before, and I have the feeling that we as Muslims don't pay attention to our history. We don't pay attention to history in general. It seems it's not that important. It seems it's something that is in the past. Let's leave it aside. Let's forget about it. It happened. But no, don't forget the slogan, history repeats itself. And sometimes it is a very, very bad repetition. History repeats itself can be a positive way, but it can also be a negative way. And unfortunately, we see that a lot of negative things have happened in history. And I think that if the Quran, and Allah is telling us in the Quran, a third of the Quran alone focuses on stories, on history. A third. Imagine, what does that mean to us? As a Muslim, we have to think carefully and say, okay, if the Quran, the book of Allah, is telling me a third of its book, of Allah's words, basically focus on history, I have to take a lesson of this. I have to focus on this too. I'm not saying that this is the only important part in life, of course not, but it is, and it plays a role. And I think we should acknowledge that. That's why these episodes coming now still are the ones that will focus pretty much on our Islamic heritage in the past, but as well as nowadays, the way the heritage has developed, it has developed into something new. Even, I would call it modern. We have modern Islamic architecture in Europe, and as we have seen before, the center, the Islamic center in Lisbon, in the capital of Portugal, this is more a Moorish modern architecture, Moorish modern building. It focuses a lot on its Moorish background, and why, what is this exactly, the Moorish, the word Moor? It comes actually originally from Greek, mavros, which means black. Yes, indeed, just imagine basically, black civilization. Many people have difficulties understanding that, but indeed, Islamic civilization in Spain had to do with Africa. Islam went to Africa first, and then it went to Europe. And this is an amazing fact, isn't it? I don't think that many people have realized that. Even Africans themselves haven't realized that, I think. I'm very, very sure about that. Now, if we look at Muslims nowadays in Europe, how ashamed they are, some of them at least, how ashamed they are that they don't want to really claim being Muslim sometimes. They want to hide it even. But if we look at Islamic civilization in Spain, in Portugal, and in other parts of the world that we're going to, inshallah, it's an unbelievable, unbelievable high civilization, unbelievable. And many, many people, even non-Muslims, have realized it nowadays. Lots of books have been written nowadays about the Islamic civilization in Spain as well as in Portugal, in the Iberian Peninsula. Sicily, another part of Islamic civilization as well. Sicily, an island of Italy. Greece, the Balkan. Don't forget, unfortunately, we have a sad reminder of the Balkan War, 1992 to 1995, in Bosnia. And not only in Bosnia, in a part of the world which used to be called Yugoslavia. We grew up with this. I grew up with the name Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia used to be one big country, and now it has become 5 or even 6, depending on who recognizes Montenegro or not. Now, it is a sad reminder of Islamic civilization in the Balkans and in Europe, but it is a reminder. And that does not mean that Islam or the Muslims created this hatred. And it does not mean that Islam or the Muslims are the ones who are responsible for wars, as many people think. I hear it myself, actually, in my family. Very often you hear, oh, again, when there are Muslims, there are problems and there's trouble. But the point is this the Muslims? Is this something that has to do with Islam? Is this something that has to do with the Muslims? Now, Europe, again, is a continent. As President Barack Obama said, Islam is part of America. It's an American religion. Now, I dare saying Islam is a European religion as well. Let's not forget one important thing. Many people say, how can you be European and be Muslim? It's impossible. We're Christians. We have a Christian background. But don't forget, for the same reason you can say, how can you be European and be Christian? Jesus, Isa alayhi salam, was not European. After the break, we'll go deeper into this issue. Thank you very much.
Chosen as part of the best of mankind, we spread the word of Islam.
إذا دكت الأرض دكا.
Do you want to learn how to recite the Quran? Do you want to read Islamic books in Arabic? You may enroll in a small group.
العسل من السوق اشترى. نعم اشترى.
A private lesson.
من مثلها في فضلها.
من مثلها في فضلها.
Or at your own pace to fit your schedule.
هل أنت قادم في المعهد؟
Courses for sisters with female instructors. We're bringing you the latest software technology, professional instructors, and a state-of-the-art classroom to the comfort of your home. Enroll now in Huda Academy. Huda Academy, your gateway to authentic Islamic knowledge.
Chosen as part of the best of mankind, we spread the word of Islam.
Welcome back again, and I'm Dr. Stef, and I would like to show you some more about the Islamic heritage that we have to discover, or we will discover together in these different episodes. Now, we have looked into a variety of countries at this moment, Spain, Portugal, or in the Mediterranean Sea. If we look deeper into the Mediterranean Sea, where actually the Islamic civilization spread into Europe, Spain and Portugal, as we mentioned before, as well as Italy. And we can see some more photos of Italy especially. There is Islamic heritage in Italy, which many people again are not aware of. This particular photo you can see here now is actually in Venice. Venice, you can ask, or maybe some of you even know that Venice was never Islamic. The Muslims never went to Venice. Venice was never part of the Islamic Empire. How come that we have Islamic architecture in Venice? It's a very simple thing. The time of the Muslim might and power, the Europeans copied the Muslims, and they copied their architecture. They copied anything they could copy from the Muslims. We have even sources talking about French, Parisian in Paris, people who were basically wearing turbans, wearing long robes, wanting to look like the Umayyads or the Abbasids, later even like the Ottomans. Incredible if you imagine nowadays that not even the Muslims want to look like Muslims, isn't it? Now, it is an amazing situation. If you look at our history, and that's why it is so important, and that's why we have to tell our children why we need to know about our Islamic heritage and about Islamic history. We used to be proud of it as Muslims, and I think we still have to be proud of it nowadays, because it still plays a very important role. Sicily, part of Italy, Spain, Portugal, these are all parts of the Islamic Empire for at least 200 to 300 years. Let's move on to the east. Let's look into the Balkans, as we discussed a little bit, Yugoslavia, Albania, Greece. What about Cyprus? Cyprus and Greece, both of these countries, had a common development first, but a different later. If we look at Cyprus as a Greek island, as the Greeks would like to portray it, it is Hellenic. It is an island which goes back to Hellenic architecture and Hellenic culture, Greek culture and Greek architecture. But it has been influenced heavily by the Muslims as well. This time, the Muslims were not the Muslims from the Arab Peninsula or from Africa. This time, the Muslims came from the east. These Muslims were the Turkish tribes or the Ottomans, who actually are the ones who set foot first in the east of Europe. The Balkans were colonized, if we might use this word, it's maybe not the best word, but the Balkans were opened, let's use the Arabic term for it, they were opened for Islam by the Ottomans, the Ottoman dynasty. The Seljuks, which was another Turkish tribe which came before the Ottomans, they were the ones to open the Anatolian area, which is nowadays Turkey and a big part of Asia, to open it to Islam. They never set foot in Europe. The Ottomans were the first ones to actually come to the east of Europe, open the Balkans to Islam, and open the Balkans to the Muslim world. If we look deeply into the following map that we're going to see now, which is showing Greece, Bulgaria, Albania, the whole of the Balkan Peninsula, as it is called nowadays, Romania, Serbia, Bulgaria, Greece, Turkey. These are all countries of the Balkan Peninsula. The Balkans, as we said before, they were part of the Ottoman Islamic Empire for more than 400 years. An amazing situation, amazing 400 years. Not as long as the Iberian Peninsula, but still long enough to leave a big heritage behind. A heritage that actually still influences the Balkan people nowadays, and unfortunately, as I mentioned before, had to play a role in the Bosnian War, the very bloody war between 1992 and 1995. I think as Muslims we should never forget that this war reminded a lot of our brothers and sisters there what they actually are, that they are Muslims. Because unfortunately, a lot of our brothers and sisters in Bosnia, in Yugoslavia, ex-Yugoslavia at that time, had forgotten about their Islamic past, about their Islamic heritage. They just carried some Muslim names, but they were not aware of their Islamic heritage. So unfortunately, this war had to come to wake up some people. And alhamdulillah, it did wake up a big population down there. It has, unfortunately, it destroyed a country, but we never know. Alhamdulillah, that's all in the plans of Allah. Maybe it was a good thing. Again, the Balkan Peninsula will play an amazing, a big role for the development of politics nowadays, for the development of the Muslims in Europe nowadays. We should never forget that most of the Muslim countries or the Muslim areas in Europe are actually Balkan countries. Turkey, first of all, where we're talking about 97, 98% of the population being Muslim. Albania, secondary, which is 70% of the population being Muslim. Of course, Albania, having gone through tough times like the time of communism, which required from the population, from its Albanian population, to forget and leave Islam and any kind of religion aside. The churches were demolished, mosques were burned down, some of them were used as stables. So Albania went through tough times, and the Muslims in Albania, many of them have left Islam aside. Many of them don't even know that they're Muslims. 70% officially declare themselves being Muslims. So Albania is the second country. Next to this one, we have a country like Bosnia, as you mentioned before. Bosnia is you can say it's a Muslim country, but it has around 45 to 50% of the population are Muslims in Bosnia. Going over to countries like Kosovo, which is a newly formed country, which has around 30 to 35% Muslims, as well as Montenegro, which again, there are issues about recognition of Montenegro. Serbia does not want to recognize Montenegro. Serbia has problem in recognizing Kosovo, and many other parts of the world will not recognize Kosovo or Montenegro. So all this has to do with the way that the Ottoman Empire was structured. It was a centralized government, centralized empire. Everything was run from Istanbul, former Constantinople, and everything was in the hand of the Sultan at that time, who had an incredible, a mighty power, an incredible might. If we look deeper into the aspect of Greece, Greece is an important country and it will play an important role in our history, in the history of Islam, simply because the first real revolution on the Balkans was actually the Greek Revolution. The Greek Revolution was the one that destroyed or went deeper into the heart of the Ottoman Empire and destroyed the Ottoman Empire within. No doubt about it. 1821, the Greek Revolution. We're going, inshallah, to see also how this developed in one of our episodes where we're going to focus very much on Greece, very much on Cyprus, and on specific regions. This map is the map of Greece, just to give you an idea what it looks like nowadays. Now, Greece was just a province of the Ottoman Empire, not at all the way it looks like nowadays. If we look into the following map, the Ottoman conquests, it gives you a better idea how the Ottomans moved into Europe. If you look at the Albania, which was opened for Islam already in 1385, which is a very early time. One time that is not mentioned here at all is the north of Greece. We see Bulgaria opened in 1362 to 1395. But before that, already in 1360, the north of Greece, northern part of Greece, which is nowadays called Macedonia and Thrace, they were already open to Islam, and until nowadays, there is a Muslim minority living in the north of Greece. The Black Sea coast already in 1354, and these were the first areas that were opened on the European side for the Ottomans. The Ottomans moved further into Serbia nowadays, 1398, into Bosnia, 1459, Wallachia, which is basically Romania, in 1476. The Crimea played an important role again because unfortunately it was lost already in the 19th century. 1475, the Crimea was opened for Islam. That gives you a better idea of the Balkan Peninsula, and a better idea to understand how come that there is such a puzzle, a mix of population, a mix of people, not only ethnic, but also religiously. There is such a mix of different religions that there is a kind of, we have to be careful what word we use, but a kind of Balkan Islam that developed in certain parts of this world. In Albania, for example, there is a center that's a center of Bektashism. Bektashism is a sect Bektashism is nothing else but a sect was developed from it came originally from the Shia part, the Shia area of Islam, the Shia sect of Islam basically, and it developed into a big sect in the Balkans, especially in Albania, where the center is, in Bosnia, in the north of Greece. There are many Bektashis. These people call themselves Muslims, but according to many scholars, it is very, very difficult to call a Bektashi a Muslim, simply because they reject the basic things of Islam, like the prayer, the Salah, which is one of the pillars of Islam. They believe in one God is there officially, the Tawheed is there, but the belief in the prayer, the 5 daily prayers, is not there. The belief in the Quran is not something that is emphasized on in this Bektashi sect. Many people are not aware that Islam has gone through a transformation on the Balkans, and nowadays we have a minority of these Bektashis living in the Balkan, and that creates some problem actually for the reputation and the outlook of Islam, especially in the Balkans. People are not aware sometimes that you might go to an imam in Bosnia, you might go to an imam in Albania, you might go to an imam in the north of Greece, and he might offer you raki, which is 70% alcohol to drink. Imagine, basically 70% alcohol. My father and many people in the Balkans would be very, very happy. Now, it is really irony of history, isn't it, that if you look at Turkey exporting 70% alcohol, raki, the same Bulgaria, the same Romania, Albania, all these countries in the Balkans have a history with raki, which we call in Greece ouzo, 70% alcohol. Incredible, isn't it? Now, if you look at this slide, it reminds you, I'm very, very sure, of a bazaar somewhere in Turkey or a bazaar somewhere in the Middle East. Now, it is neither Turkey nor anywhere else in the Middle East. It used to be Greece. This is Athens. And in the background, you can see actually the Acropolis. And Athens used to be, again, part of the Ottoman Empire, as we said before. And this specific picture here shows you what it looked like that time. Now, to round up our episode, I would like to finish with 2 slides. This one is the Acropolis. And as you can see, the Parthenon, the temple on the Acropolis of Athens, the well-known Parthenon, was destroyed. But it was not destroyed as Greeks used to say, or like talking about it being destroyed by the Turks. It was destroyed by the Venetians. It was a Venetian cannonball that went in there. And I would like to finish our slideshow, and I would like to finish this episode with Muslims, Greek Muslims, praying in our traditional uniform. This traditional uniform is actually originally from Albania. It's an Albanian uniform, but Greeks used to wear it in order to have more movements, in order to use, the rebels especially who were hiding in the mountains, used to have this kind of skirt-like uniform, which would give them easiness of move. Now, if we take the last slide, imagine Greeks look at this one and they say, these are not Greeks. These are not Greeks praying there. These are some Muslims. They must be Turks or Albanians. But no, I would like to remind you that Balkan people in general, were adherents of Islam. Many of them at least. And in Greece, especially in Greece, we had a very, 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 very big majority mainly of Muslims. They all disappeared. And we will go deeper into this in the upcoming episodes. I would like to thank you for our first episode, and I hope you enjoyed it, and we will inshallah go deeper into the other countries. Thank you very, very much, and I'll see you inshallah in the other episodes. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We are the Muslim Ummah, and each day that goes by, the harder we try. In gratitude we pray to Allah. Chosen as part of the best of mankind, we spread the word of Islam. Each man at each hour, in all of his power, each flower, each tree, everything that we see. Spread the word, oh man. Spread the word of Islam. Oh, fortunate one, paradise must be won.